largest crowd we've ever had at our homeowner workshop series, so we're a little intimidated, and we just shut down and blank out. Just wait, we'll come back. Just stress. But we just wanted to thank you all for coming, and this is a little bit of a two-parter or two angles that we're looking at this. We're going to be talking about how does El Cerrito approve and ADUs and what we require in this city. And then we'll talk about a little bit about the values of having a design professional help with the ADU and a few code aspects that can come up with the ADU. So Margaret Kavanaugh, our Community Development Department Service Manager, is going to take the lead, and she's going to start the presentation. And then at one point, we'll talk about a few important building code aspects that should be included in every ADU when you take on this venture. So I will leave it to Margaret.
Thank you very much. So I am the Development Services Manager for El Cerrito. I'm very honored to have that position here. My training is more in planning, and today's training is more in building, so we're kind of doing a kind of funny and share thing where I'll be doing one half and the other, and sometimes we might things together. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to come to do this workshop in a space that I've never seen so many people, so it's really exciting. And it's the Community Development Department does a lot of things in our city, but one of the things we do daily is regulate. We try to stay very neutral. We try to be arbiter of the neighbors and zoning and building code. So tonight's particularly fun because we don't have to be neutral. We like these a lot, and so we like them a lot. That's what I wanted to get across. So this is coming from a very strong. We want to tell you everything that we've seen in the last year, especially since the California state law has gone and encouraged these. We've been able to loosen some of our standards and make it more flexible. But it's the city council, the city administration is neutral on accessory dwelling units. They're positive. So we're hoping to help everyone find a way to do something that they want to do here. Starting off with, and I heard it over there before, what's an ADU? So it's an accessory dwelling unit. They're also called granny flats. They're called in-law units. They're called lots of things. There's all different ways to sort this, but let's just start with these three. Detached, which is somewhere off the main dwelling, attached, part of the main dwelling, and the junior accessory dwelling unit, which we'll talk more about. That's really a room. Sometimes it's a lot easier to see it in a visual. So attached is going to be, an existing building envelope is a conversion of existing space that you already live in that you might be able to repurpose. Attached with a new addition is the second one, and then detached. Just another slice of this, detached. And so this shows up, San Mateo County used it, lots of state. This particular ADU must be a planner or an architect because it's the most filmed ADU I've seen so far when I was making this presentation. So this is that thing that I think we all want, something nice like this with, less watering needs. This is a conversion of existing space. Full disclosure, that's my house. I like these so much. I'm doing one too, and I live here. So that was habitable space. I'm one of those people in the ranch houses in the hills that has that second story tucked under. We've been looking at that for years and thinking we could use those rooms. We could find some way to bring more households into a single family detached home. So conversion of existing space is definitely one of the more popular options. An addition. So in this case, this is not El Cerrito, but there's obviously over that garage, there's two roofs, and it's clear that one of those was an addition over the garage in that footprint, new space for the home that added a second unit to the space. Junior accessory dwelling units. I just wanted to kind of step back and take a little discussion about this. They are permitted in the city of El Cerrito. The stats are no more than 500 square feet, has to have two entrances, one's inside of the house, one goes directly outside of the house. Must have some kind of cooking facilities, read like hot plate. This is not a full kitchen, but something where you can warm food, and access to a sink. In a junior accessory dwelling unit, you are not required to have a private bathroom. So this is the cheapest version, the most cost-efficient version of an accessory dwelling unit. And why that becomes even more apparent is you don't need, it's not considered a new unit in terms of building code. And as we go on in this presentation, you're going to learn that there's things we can be flexible on as a city staff, city hall, but there's things we cannot be flexible on, and building code is definitely one of them. So let's take questions at the end, if that's okay. What does it look like? It looks like a bedroom with 2 doors and a cooktop or a hot plate. Why? You're all here, so kind of telling you why. I started doing this presentation, I was putting it together, and I'm like, probably the easiest slide in the entire conversation is why, because you're all here tonight, you must know why. But there's a public good aspect to this. Everybody knows there's a housing crisis. It's really nice in this day and age to be able to do something to one of the many problems that are presented to our community, to our world. It feels good, and it's something you can concretely do. There's community benefit to it. There's a lot of people in our community that serve our community that can't afford to live in our community. And accessory dwelling units opens up that whole frontier, right? So the teachers, the firefighters, the planners, gotta get plugged in somewhere. You name it. The people working in our cafes, the people working in our restaurants, we want to get folks, we want to shorten their trip to work. It just opens up. There's a lot of other socioeconomic issues with this, but the community is richer with everybody in it. So, personally, it's great. It provides rental income for lots of flexible needs, and I bet you have your own reasons, so I won't even dwell on that one. It's nice to have more money. Thank you. You can house friends and relatives while affording them privacy, right? It's one thing to have your mother-in-law living with you, but it's another thing to have your mother-in-law living with you with her own kitchen and bathroom. And I'm getting a lot of smiles, so I don't think I have to sell that very far. Downsizing. In the city of El Cerrito, you don't have to live in the primary unit, you can live in the secondary unit. So if you've lived here 10, 20, 40, 50 years and you want to age in place, which is the second one too, you can move into the accessory dwelling unit and rent out the primary one, right? You can cover your mortgage. You can cover your mortgage in a nice trip every year. So it's another way to stay where you are and do what you do among the community that you already love. So there's not a lot of downsides, but there's a lot of upsides to this. Okay, so that was the what and the why. Welcome to how. Part of this is me as a professional planner speaking to you, and part of me as a homeowner that's going through this right now. The first thing that I wish I had thought of, the first 2 things that I wish I had been told in a way I heard was, you need a design professional. It might be an architect, it might be a general contractor, it might be a designer, but you need somebody, because we're going to need some sort of plans. I think, I was thinking in my situation, I have a conditioned space, I'm like, a couple doors, a little firewall, and I'm done. No, it's plans. Were designed by an architect before I could be comfortable with what I was submitting to the city for review. They go through, and we'll talk about it later, but it goes through plan check. And there's building code information that we need to know is at the present. So you can, in some cases, draw it yourself, but there's a lot of details, there's technical aspects of this that are not readily available unless you are a design professional, and then you are smirking right now because you know it's hard to pull it together. So I really encourage you to bring a design professional on your team. The second thing is it's not cheap. It's cheaper than building a new single family house, I'll tell you that. It's much cheaper than building a multifamily, but it's not something that most people are going to be able to just reach over and access without some thought towards the financing aspects of it. So, yeah, get your professionals, figure out your financing and your budget. It's worth it, and that informs everything else you do. Did you want a 2-bedroom? Did you want a 1-bedroom? I don't know about you guys, but economics totally drove what I did next. So it's worth the time to think about that. Now, back over to where Jay and I work during the day. There's 2 permits you'll need from the city. We work together. The Community Development Department is, among other things, planning and building and other fabulous people. But if you follow the development standards that I'm about to explain to you, it's a ministerial permit, meaning it's just part of the building permit. We have a fee, which I'll tell you later, and I've got some good news about that. But it's by right, meaning like it's like a building permit. It's not discretionary. There are some standards that I'm about to explain to you that we can be flexible on. Our city council asked us to really think long and hard about our flexibility and what we needed to keep and what we didn't, and that's codified. So there are some things I can say, you know, case by case. Maybe you can have this second unit or the accessory dwelling unit in the front yard. Maybe your backyard's a crevasse. Maybe your front house is set back. Maybe a lot of things. So there are some things that are development standards that we can work with you through an administrative use permit process. So an administrative use permit process is a lot of words, and the fourth time you say AUP for an ADU, you're going to reverse them too, so just get ready for that. So we notice everybody within 300 feet of your house, and we are the location you're going to do the permit. We post the site, typically. We put something in the paper. We explain what's being proposed, and we hold a hearing. We've probably had about 15 of those in the last year. Most, I will say, I've seen two sets of types of neighbors come in. There's the, what's that do to my view? I think that's a very sincere question. You know, I just want to understand. I saw the notice. Well, my favorite question ever, my comment ever is like, oh, I saw something from El Cerrito, but I threw it away. So don't throw away your notices. But anyway, I want to know how it's going to impact my neighbors, or how is that going to impact my view? Are they looking in my backyard now? Most people come because they want to know how to do it. And that was one of the reasons why we had this workshop, is to realize there was a lot of information that we could be getting out in this way. But that's the common public comments that we get. That's discretionary, meaning the city can say yes, or more commonly yes with conditions, or no. So if there's a compelling land use reason not to give a flexibility to a certain development standard that someone's requesting, we try to find a way to make it work, but that can be declined. So the easiest, most bulletproof way is to stay within the development standards. That's not always possible, and it's not always logical. So we welcome the conversation. Also here in El Cerrito, both planning and building staff want to talk to you about this as you're doing it. It's really much better for everyone if you come in as you're working on it and not come in at the end. You're welcome to, of course, just come in and submit the building permit, but we'd rather help you through the process. I know it's not self-explanatory, so we'd love to meet you where you are on the process and work with you as you go along. So once you get through planning, you then have a building permit submittal. And again, what I referenced before is life safety isn't flexible. We have certain requirements that Jay's going to go over for you, but the 2016 California Residential Building Code applies to these units, and they are separate units, except for the junior, which has its own little special island. So, what's a zoning standard that is not discretionary? There are a lot in residential zones, so that's all the single-family detached, that's the duplex zones. If you don't know what zone you're in, we have GIS on our website. If you just go to you have to use the website and go in the search box and type GIS, it'll come up and you can look and see what zone you're in. If it says R something, you're in. That's the first, you've got the first hurdle. Minimum square foot is 150 square feet. That's super small. And I will say, if you're not from El Cerrito, check with your local jurisdiction. We'll go back on that because we let them go smaller than many cities did. In El Cerrito, the owner has to live in one of the two units, not necessarily the primary unit, but one of the two units. They must have an exterior access that's independent from the primary residence. That's a no-brainer. It's a new unit, it's got its own door, that's the whole point, right? To let people come and go as they please, whether they're a loved one or a stranger paying you rent or both. That's a non-negotiable. In El Cerrito, and I keep saying that because I think other cities are different on this, a lot of them have interior accesses too. We're fine with that. We're not gonna make you remove your interior stairs. There's lots of reasons for that. If that is a loved one living downstairs, you might want to invite them to dinner and not send them outside first. We will say it has to be a fire separation and there has to be a double deadbolt, so both parties can decline to come to dinner in that description. But feel free to leave it there. It was there all along. It makes sense, and a lot of times sometimes the people living in your primary residence become your friends if you didn't know them, and so there's lots of reasons to have that as a usable staircase if that's what you wanted to keep it. Not required to, but we'll let you without any hesitation. And finally, and it's definitely an El Cerrito regulation, we don't require any parking off-street for accessory dwelling units. Some cities, many cities felt that if it was the state said if it was near transit, then the cities couldn't. Our city council felt stronger and said, let's just waive that. So you still have to, we'll talk more about other parking, but your accessory dwelling unit parking is off the board as far as something you have to worry about. These are standards that you can modify with that administrative use permit, with that small hearing that we were talking about. So if you're doing a detached, that's that one in the back. We're asking for it to be 15 feet. If you want to do a 2-story, that's definitely available to you with an accessory, with an AUP, like I'm doing that too. Maximum square footage for your new ADU can only be half of your primary house or your primary residence, or a maximum of 1,200 square feet for people who have really big houses. Again, there's reasons why that makes sense, but that's not across the board. We didn't feel that was a hard and fast rule. So come and talk to us more about that. And finally, the style and design of the project of the ADU should be harmonious or compatible with the primary residence. So it doesn't say and, it says or, and that's on purpose. It's going to be in your backyard. You're going to look at it every day of your life. I bet you're going to like it before you submit it to us. We have a wide variation on what we consider architecturally appropriate. Make it look good, and we're good too. We don't do design review in single-family homes in the city of El Cerrito. We do not, and I don't want to. So do your best work, and it'll be fine. A word about garage conversions. So this is true statewide. If you create your accessory dwelling unit out of your garage, and you keep that footprint, right? A lot of times if you think about some of the houses in our city, there's a house in the front and a garage in the back and a long driveway, right? Mm-hmm. There is some money to be saved by putting your accessory dwelling unit in that garage. That's great. There's going to be building code things you're going to have to step up on, but if you stay in that footprint, you can keep those setbacks. And what that does for you is that leaves you a larger backyard, right? If you don't put it in the garage space, you have to meet the setbacks of the residential zone that you're in. So it's typically 10 feet or 15 feet on the front and back, or 5 feet on the sides. If you're just converting your garage, the whole state of California agrees on this regulation that you can just leave it there. You don't have to tear it down and move it over 5 feet. It just seems so straightforward. I'm so happy to see that. There are building code ramifications to that. You won't have openings, and I'll let Jay talk more about that, but if you're on a property line, you can't have windows. So you're looking into your backyard, which is probably preferable anyway. However, if you do convert your garage, you just took away your parking for your single-family detached home. While we can't waive that, we have loosened that requirement significantly, meaning I still need 2 off-street parking spaces if you had 2 off-street parking spaces to begin with, but instead of having them in a covered space on your site, it can be in your driveway, it can be tandem, it doesn't have to meet the front setback anymore, so basically don't block our sidewalk with your cars, show me 2 spots that I can put 2 cars in, and we're done. So that's a big modification for our city, and I think it's acknowledging that the housing is more important than the vehicles and letting us set that prioritization. So that's the thing about converting your garage. And now I'm going to hand it over to the building code side of the Sunday and Chair Show, Jay Marlette, who is also our code enforcement officer and our rental inspection officer. So he carries a lot of books. And many.
Usually you'll take a book of you.
He memorized all those books before he came tonight. I just want to say, so feel free to, during the questions, we're just going to riddle.
Yeah, feel free to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So make me stop.
All right. So, we went over a lot of stuff about what are the basics of applying for an ADU, and what you'll find about ADU construction versus brand new house construction, it's a lot less restrictive. So the city has been like way less restrictive in terms of you don't have to have covered off-street parking. You used to have to build a carport or a garage or something. Now they're going to just let you have a pad. A lot less restrictive on setbacks. You're going to build in an existing structure. You don't have to move the structure 5 feet away from anything. So it's a lot less restrictive, and the building code safety can't be less restrictive, but it is in a sense that when you're doing an ADU in an existing structure, that the part that you're not working on, the part that you're not changing, doesn't have to be brought up to 2016 California residential code. So that's the good part. So the part that you are working on, the kitchen, the sink, the door that you're going to put in there, that has to be up to code, but you don't have to make the whole, area up to modern standards, okay? So that's kind of a nice thing about ADUs, is that a lot of your buildings are already built, and they were built to the standards of the time that it was required, because no way anybody did anything without permits, right? So, it should be just fine. So anyway, there's a couple of things we just want to, like a couple of highlights that we want to, point out that's really important to have in an ADU. One thing is the term we use, firewall. It's not the most technical term, but it's basically a separation between spaces that make it harder for fires to travel from one part of the building to the next part of the building. The most common firewall that you may have and not realize it is most garages, and this has been built this way since the 50s, and the code's become more restrictive, but most garages have fire protection between the garage and the rest of the house. And the reason for that is, what's in garages? We have cars with fuel in them, we have our paint thinner in them, we have all kinds of things that like to burn up and blow up. And so you'll notice in garages that you always have what we call sheetrock, gypsum board, between the garage and the house. And if you have an old 50s house, it wouldn't be like a fire-rated door. The door itself is special fire-rated. But you might notice if you tap on your door, there's sheet metal on it. Sheet metal used to be the fire-resistant material that you put on the door. Now we do doors differently. We learned that there's better ways to make fire-rated doors. So the reason why firewall is being brought up is because when you build, let's say you build an ADU inside an existing building, that wall between this side and this other unit over here, that whole wall, all the way from the foundation, all the way through the attic, has to be a 1-hour firewall. What's that mean? The most simple version of a 1-hour firewall is 2 pieces of 5/8 sheetrock on both sides of the wall, both sides of the 2x4 framing. But not all building configurations jive with that. Like, there's not always a perfect little square where you could have, one side, there's this partition, another side. What if the rest of the house is going to be where, that's your main family, you're going to put a little ADU on this place? Well, how do you get the sheetrock all the way up to the attic this way? You're not going to throw another piece of sheetrock on top of the floor. So a design professional will say, well, this part is easy. We're just going to put 5/8 sheetrock on that side and this side. And this part over here, we're going to crack open our code books. We're going to see if there's a certain floor assembly or a ceiling assembly that complies to the same equivalency of a firewall. You see what I mean? Why a design professional is important? For those things that just don't perfectly come out prescribed. There are ways to get there, but a design professional is going to go, we're going to be at the plan check stage going, how are we going to do our firewall? And they're going to go, well, according to the sheetrock book, they say that this particular product that we're going to stick on the ceiling is compatible to UL something, 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 and then we'll look at the code and we'll go, okay, that's good. That's a design professional. So it's really worth having one. And so a couple of things about it. So the applicable, at the end of the day, I stop learning how to say those things that mean things, words, but this is the code. The CRC is the California Residential Code. And so we're building off of that. That requires a firewall. The reason why a firewall between your accessory dwelling units is that 80% of fire-related deaths are from residential fires. And for the same reason, we want to separate the garage, the misbehaving part of your building that likes to catch on fire a lot, from the rest of the building. We also don't want one neighbor to be actions to burn the other neighbor. So at the other part, one neighbor might be a little less fire savvy or fire conscious than the other, so they have to be separated. And then, yeah, I would say most fires do occur, 80% in residential buildings. And you know, like I wanted to emphasize, this is a good example of using the design professional. So when it's not just a simple matter of 5/8 sheetrock on both sides of that 2x4 frame wall, there's some kind of research they need to do that will satisfy the building official and plan checker. That's where the design professional could totally look that up and include that in your plans. And then room dimension, that's another part. Basically, a room is 70 square feet, and there is never a dimension in the room that's less than 5 feet. So like, in other words, you can't have a 2-foot by 35-foot room. You know, that's not a room. A room has at least a 7-foot dimension. The only exception to that is the kitchen. The kitchen can have less than a 7-foot dimension. I think the other rule with kitchens to accommodate for that is you have to have at least a 30-inch path or space in front of your cabinets and counters and all that. You have to have a walkway through your kitchen. So 70 square feet is a room, any room. And then the ceiling height, for the most part, is 7 feet. I say most part because there are exceptions. You know, bathrooms and laundry areas, that's 6 feet 8 inches. I wanted to bring up this one rule I thought was kind of good to know, because some of you might be putting your ADU in your attic, right? So yeah, the tip of the attic 7 feet, no problem. But when you get over here, we're kind of losing our 7 feet. So there is a exception in the code that if you have I'm sorry, these are terrible scanned pictures right from the code book. They did not translate well on the PowerPoint. By the way, the PowerPoint and more handouts will be put on our website. So you can go to our website in Community Development Department, search around in there. You'll find all this stuff on there in case you want to get it later. We didn't expect such a big crowd, so we'll have a digital version on our website. But anyway, the way you could do a ceiling in a bedroom is that you could, that has a sloped ceiling, is that the lowest part of the ceiling can be 5 feet, and then 50% of, at least 50% of this room space, of this floor space, has to be 7 feet. So that might be like 10 feet. Great, and it comes down to about 7 here. Well, we're way more than 50%, and we don't get any lower than 5 feet here, you know. And so that's just a general, you should know about ceiling height. And again, design professional, right? Like, oh, but what do I do if, like, I have this, like, I want to kind of have this 1950s look in my house. You know, a lot of these 50s houses have this kind of roof that kind of, you see the slats and you see the beam. Well, then the design professional would look at the code even closer. There's a million gazillion little exceptions, and they'll say, that's okay. The bottom of the beam could be 6 feet 4 inches, just at that little beam. So that's why a design professional is important, because they're going to help you get what you want a lot faster. And it's a lot cheaper to just hire a design professional once than to have a building inspector come out and go, yeah, that's not going to work and it doesn't match the plans. You're going to have to pay more money and bring your plans back for revision. You know, so think of it, if it's like, oh God, design professional is kind of expensive to write it all up. It's actually a gazillion times cheaper than every time the building inspector says, hey, I don't want to sign off on this. I don't want to like be your design professional out in the field. Come on back, resubmit your plans, wait for things to get done. You know, design professionals make it go faster. And as Margaret said, like, please, like, while you're writing the plans, we're a small town. You know, we have this nice friendly counter. And come up to it and talk to a planner or talk to one of us. So while you're writing it, we can try to keep you, keep you on even keel towards your final application.
I have a question.
Yes.
Just on the previous slide.
Here's a previous slide.
All rooms have to be at least 70 square feet. What about a bathroom?
Yeah, all rooms are 70 square feet. Bathrooms, I have to double check on that dimension.
It's a big bathroom.
Yeah, yeah, because I don't think bathroom is considered a habitable room in the code. So that would, I think the bathroom is going to be mainly, I think it's like, it's 6 by 8. Yeah, it's not that. The main way the bathroom is measured is how much, it's more of a fixture measurement. So what we look at bathrooms is we want to make sure there's 24 inches in front of the toilet, that the center of the toilet is 18 inches from the sidewall. The shower has a circle in it, so if you took a 30-inch hula hoop and dropped it on the shower floor, you would meet that. And then I think the shower stand-up is 6'8". So I think what it is with bathrooms, there's a gazillion little dimensions that are more fixture-based, and if you meet all that, you should be okay.
But let's take the rest of the questions at the end, just because I think there's going to be a lot of them, and I don't want to ruin your flow.
I know, I just have some nerdy joy.
I know.
All right, so egress door, that's really important, and I want to just make sure we cover the bases on the egress door. So every dwelling, so like each ADU is a dwelling, okay, have to have an egress door so that mainly so people can get out, and especially get out if there's a fire. And there's a few requirements for the door when it's your one egress door for your dwelling unit. And it's going to be that the egress door should be private. I think I already said that. The egress door has to be a side hinge door, so no sliding glass doors. Okay? You can have a sliding glass door if you also have one hinge egress door. And the other thing is, and sometimes people get this mixed up, you'll see in the code or you'll hear, oh, it's got to be a 32-inch door. And that's not exactly correct. You do have to have a 32-inch clearance. So the door clearance is from the face of the door to the doorstop. So when somebody buys, usually when you buy a door from a supply center, they're going to buy a door assembly. It comes with the door jamb and the frame and the hinges and all of that. Well, the hinges and the actual door itself and the space between the hinges is going to gobble up a couple of inches. The doorstop itself, the thing that the door hits, that's where you put your weather strip, that'll gobble up some dimensions. So you want to make sure that you get, I would say, a 36-inch door assembly and you're covered. So the other thing that we want to talk about is window egress. Sometimes I see this a lot where I have to do code enforcement. I also address situations where people do work without permits. And one of the most common things is they go, gee, I hired this really reputable window company, and they charged me all this money. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to get permits. They said, I thought they would take care of it. And what some of these reputable companies do is they install windows without knowing the egress code. This is only for bedrooms, but bedroom windows have to have a certain size opening in them. And they're very specific. The opening has to be at least 24 inches high and at least 20 inches wide. Now, a 24 by 20 inch window would not meet either. Those are just the minimum dimension in those directions. You also have to have a 5.7 square foot opening. And the reason for that is, yes, for you to get out, but it's also for a firefighter, for her to be able to step into your window with her helmet and a pack. So it's actually kind of a rescue code. And in the window, if you're doing new construction, the window's already kind of made, like the wall part, you don't have to reframe walls. But if you're reframing a wall, the window has to be within 44 inches of the floor. So when a firefighter steps in, they can make sure there's a floor there before they step down, especially if it's on the second story. Want to make sure the firefighter doesn't get hurt in the fire. So that's the egress window aspect of it. This is another area where a design professional is pretty important. We have light, ventilation, and heating requirements. So light, there are codes about natural light. All right? And remember when Margaret was saying, hey, this is great if you have like an existing garage, you don't have to do the setbacks, from the property line, but you just can't put windows in them if you're too close. The reason for that code is so that if there's a fire inside the house and it cooks the window away, it doesn't catch your neighbor's house on fire. Okay? So every room has to have 8% of its floor space. So you take the floor space, take 8% of that, oh God, I know math, and it has to be glass, it has to be window, natural light. And so not all rooms can achieve that, especially if you don't get you don't get the windows on the neighbor's property line, right? So a design professional will have some more understanding, some more rules to help make that requirement work. One is they'll be able to use artificial lighting to look up and find out what that requirement is, or maybe a smart design professional will say, well, we're actually allowed to borrow some of that natural light in terms of code from the other room if the wall in between it is at least 50% open to the other room, and it has at least this many square foot of opening. So can you see where a design professional is pretty handy in that situation? It's all figure outable, but there's just too many things to try to do on your first shot at this. Natural ventilation. Let's just say you have your natural light and they're all windows and you're at exactly 8%. You just made it. Well, those windows, at least half of that glazing area has to open up. You need 4% of your floor area to be openable window or openable skylight or louver or something that will allow for ventilation. Again, you're not going to believe I'm going to say this, design professional. Sometimes they can help get around that also. They can do it through, they can look up the requirements for mechanical ventilation exceptions at the ceiling fan and they also have these special little assemblies. If you ever go to these loft apartments, and there's, they're kind of cool. You see them in Emeryville and Oakland especially. You go in these loft apartments, you notice only one wall is going to have windows, right? It's an old laundry factory or something, and they got this big window. And you'll notice there's always a weird white plastic thing next to the window. And it opens. You kind of pop it out and push it in, and just weird. And that thing is actually a ventilation assembly that's been approved by code. So sometimes you'll get these lofts, they build all these lofts, they only have one little wall to do all that from, and that's why lofts are lofts in many cases, because they have that, they don't have a big wall that separates that natural light that's required. And sometimes you'll find some weird little, there's a million different styles, some big zit on the wall that lets this air in. That's an approved assembly for ventilation. And heating. So the easiest way to do heating, the requirement is that you have to have 68 degrees of heat, 3 feet off the floor from 2 feet from the wall. And that's what we do. We just walk around going, yep, that's 68, 67. You know, I don't know how they measure that. I don't walk around with a thermometer. But we know it's right.
There's an app on my phone.
Huh?
There's an app on our phone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know, wouldn't it be like functionally obsolete when they just get enough apps?
Yeah.
Turn on your building inspector app.
Yeah.
So what the easiest way to do it is just have a separate heater in the accessory dwelling unit. If you're trying to, well, they say, well, I have a central heating system, and there's a vent that comes into that little basement area that I want to heat up. So if they've got heat, it gives me 68 degrees, this many feet off the floor and wall. Yeah, but you run into other problems. You have to have an independent thermostat. They have to be independently heated. You can't just like rely on the comfort level of, you know, the folks upstairs. And once we put that heating duct into that room, we just defeated our fire separation. Remember fire separation? Now that's an avenue for fire to come in through there. So you have to put these special fire dampers. So the easiest thing is just to put a separate heater in that. It can be a wall furnace, or they have special wall furnaces that are called direct vent furnaces that are safer for sleep areas. So that's why you also want a design professional who knows about which HVAC equipment is appropriate. You can have a regular old wall furnace of pretty much any kind, as long as it's vented outside in your family rooms, living room areas. But if it's in your sleep area, you have to have a very special, not expensive or complicated, but you have to make sure you have what's called a direct vent wall furnace, which grabs the air that burns the fuel and kicks it back out, and there's less danger of carbon monoxide poisoning. And then this is why we're just saying all these requirements can become complicated. We recommend a design professional. We just say that just because of experience. We've been out in the field. I've had to charge re-inspection fees or have people go back out and pay more money to get plan revisions because we don't have discretion. The law says we have to do it this way, and we can't just kind of slack on it. So that's why having the planning done, that's why we're so eager to help you before you get everything applied for. Some of you in here, I've walked around with you before you had things installed, because we find it easier, especially on us on the inspection side. And then getting the hookup. So we just want to just, there's always more fees, but when you build a new house, sometimes the part that kills you is all the hookup fees. It's all the different districts. The school district needs their money. The sanitary district, those are the poopy people. They need their hookup money. The water people need their money. PG&E need their money. So with ADUs, it's a lot more simple. A lot of times the water hookup, you don't need a separate meter for your ADU. So you don't need to pay this huge hookup fee. And when I say anything here, make sure you check with the different districts. But when I spoke to East Bay Mud, because I said, hey, I'm going to do this ADU presentation, what do we really need to know? And they said, well, typically you got to have the right size meter for the water usage, at the main house. And you don't have to have a separate meter. If you do, we'll have the website on the PowerPoint, which we'll also have available later. These are our schedules of getting a new meter. But in most cases, the meter that's on the house, an ADU doesn't create enough water demand that the main house meter is not already qualified to meet. So usually, water meters are not the big issue. The other thing is, electrical and gas utility, you don't need a separate meter. However, we do want to make sure the electrical is safe. So we do have the unwanted stepchild of electrical panels in El Cerrito and all over the place. They're called Federal Pacific Electric Panels. FPE you'll see that acronym. We affectionately call them fire producing equipment. They're just these panels that were manufactured between 1955 and 1985. All kinds of tests, UL 487, the government got involved, and they proved beyond any doubt that FPE panels start fires. So we're not going to let, if your main electrical panel at the house is an old FPE panel, or maybe even just a really old outdated Zinsco panel, just something that's just old, we're not going to let you hook in to this thing and pull all this demand off it. So if you really have an old panel, you may want to talk to an electrician. We may want to upgrade that panel to a safer, newer panel in that case. Otherwise, we don't go around making people upgrade their electrical, but it is a possibility because there are a lot of unsafe panels out there. And I have a lot of personal experiences watching FPE panels be the start of fires. So I used to keep one in my desk, sitting on my desk, and it was a panel that started a fire. So electrician gave it to me, and I just kept that FPE panel. Nerdy, I know, I need to get a light, but it's just a reminder when I do reports to talk about that. So the other thing, we got Pacific Gas and Electric, Gas and Utility. The thing we want to talk about is Steed Sanitary. We have our own sanitary district. It's Steed, and basically our plans need to be signed by two entities. We need them to get signed by the school district. We'll talk about that too. And we also need to get them signed by Steed Sanitary. And they're just right up the hill on Schmidt over here. And they need to look at all plans. Even if you're not, let's say you're just not going to have any water or any new plumbing involved. Let's say somehow you have a house that's almost already an ADU and has existing plumbing. They want to see all plans. And the reason why they want to see all plans isn't just to know how much load. The main thing they want to know how much doo-doo is going to be going into our system. What's our capacity? How much money are we going to need to make sure we can do whatever we need to do to maintain or upgrade our capacity? But the other reason that they want to see your plans is they want to make sure, especially if you're doing an addition, that you don't build over their easement for servicing, or you're not going to dig into one of their very, very important pipes, and you don't want to dig into one of their pipes. That is the bottom of the list of whose pipes you want to dig into. I don't know, gas and electrical still,
Yeah.
yeah, they
They're fine,
compete.
but-
Yeah, you know. But anyway, that's why they want to see everything. But the cool thing, and again, check with them before you do anything, that the charges are way less restrictive than buying a new house. There's a couple of things that triggers a charge for East Bay for Steve Sanitary. One, you have to have a kitchen for them to even start charging you, if you're going to add a new kitchen. However, if that kitchen is going to be completely, or your whole ADU is going to be completely in an existing structure, no fee. Yay! All right, but then let's say, well, okay, I'm going to have a kitchen, and I'm going to add to the building horizontally or vertically. In other words, you're going to increase the footprint. One, we're going to make sure, well, don't cut into our pipe and don't cover our easement, you know, with your building. But then, if you're adding footprint or height, and you're also going to have a kitchen, they are going to start charging you. The good news is they're not going to charge you like that big initial hookup fee, you know, like, hey, we're Steve, we're awesome, we're just going to charge you a lot for wanting to build something. They're going to be a lot less restrictive there too. They're going to say, okay, well, you do have a kitchen, you are adding footprint to the house, so we are going to charge you, but instead of charging you this huge fee, they're actually going to do it based on how much use. And if you go to their website, they have a unit called equipment. EFU is the acronym. There's so many acronyms, we use the acronym for so long, we forget what the original words are, you know. So EFU, because like we say the word tag, we play tag,
Yeah.
it stands for touch and go. I only recently learned that, you know, tag. EFUs are fixture units. And so if you go on their website, let's say you're going to do the kitchen, you're going to add a bathroom, you're increasing the foot, they're only going to charge the EFUs instead of the big fee. So what you do when you calculate that is like a toilet has 4 EFUs. And I think a kitchen sink has 3 EFUs. And the lavatory has 2 more EFUs. And each EFU is like $112.95. So you multiply, let's say you come up with 11, you multiply $112.95, and that comes to be exactly roundabout. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's how they do it. So it's not the full fee, you might, but if you do make kind of an addition type ADU with the kitchen, they're going to only charge you per use instead of the big initial hookup. And then plans must also be signed by the West Contra Costa Unified School District. That one's pretty light. I think it's like 5.2 cents a square foot. And I think if you have under 500 square feet, you're exempt. And again, check with the districts, but it's actually, the school district's pretty light. And I'm going to give the fees to Margaret, because it's actually good news.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be able to give you more good news on this evening. So I mentioned at the beginning of this discussion that the City Council felt strongly that accessory dwelling units were a good idea in the city of El Cerrito. They felt so strongly that when we were talking about, we do a master code update every July 1. We have a hearing before the City Council on this topic. When we were doing it this year, they asked us to cut the accessory dwelling unit permits in half. So it costs twice that much money, twice the 301, twice the building permit cost for the city of El Cerrito to do the plan check and inspection. We're subsidizing that by 50% because they wanted to meet you halfway on this. They wanted to bring it a little more affordable. Maybe that ups one of your finishes, maybe that just makes it possible in the first place, but it was just another way to try to reach out and say this is something that the city values and just putting our money literally where our mouth is on. So, we talked about in planning, there's a ministerial and a discretionary. So if you are doing everything within development standards, we will review it with you. Oh, well, it's a counter as many times as you want, as time allows. But when you submit it formally, that's $301.50 for that ADU permit. If we can't do it that way, and it has to be an administrative use permit, that's still unfortunately the full price, but it is $1,015. And then when you submit for your building permits, and I want to be really clear about this because it's not quite as low as it sounds unless your ADU is 300 square feet. So if you're converting existing space or attaching space to your primary unit, it's $512 for every 300 feet of your accessory dwelling unit. So do your math accordingly. And then if it's an addition, addition or a detached structure, it's $679 for every 300 square feet. So that's it came into effect July 1st. You guys totally came in at the right time for this. You can take advantage of this. It's going to go for at least a year, and we don't actually have an end date in sight, so we'll be checking back with our council. I'm sure they'll want to know how it's being successful, if it's actually causing people to come in, but at least for the next year, those are our numbers, so that's something you can use for your budgets. Universal design is it's a whole concept of building code, and I'm not a building code expert, but I will say it's basically designing a dwelling unit so that everyone can use it. Okay, so it's lower counters sometimes, or a flush entry sometimes, or a number of things that you can reach from different heights. We added 5% more discount on both of the planning and the building permit if you do it some universal design elements. And all we were trying to do in this whole conversation is introduce that into your design as early as possible. We all will need different accommodations in our lifetime, and while you're designing a home, it's a great time to think about it. So we wanted to just introduce that into your design conversation. And it seemed like money would be a good way to do it. There's so much on the internet on accessory dwelling units. This is just a scratching the surface conversation. State of California's Housing and Community Development loves these almost as much as El Cerrito does, and they have a lot, but you can start on that, that link. And again, this will be available on our website. If you're working with a contractor, and we hope you are working with a contractor, when you do, you want to make sure they have a license, and you want to make sure that license is active, and that there's not a lot of complaints against that contractor. It's a very busy time in El Cerrito to find a general contractor. I will say that flat out. Due to the tragedies north of here, with fires last year, a lot of the really good contractors are up there rebuilding now in Sonoma, or if they've got multiple skills, they're working on multifamily. It's everybody's building right now. So you'll want to make sure the person you're working with has a license. There's some things about owner builder, and we can talk about that if you want to, but whenever someone's working in your, this is our primary structure, this is your homes, right? You don't want to take a gamble. Get a GC. How many of you have been landlords before? Okay, the rest of us are like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a landlord, right? So have stuff written down. Don't do this on an agreement. Don't do this on a wink and a nod. It's money and it's real estate and it's people's homes. So there's lots of sacred conversations in this, high tension conversations. You may have to evict someone someday. You may have to have conversations about their dog or your dog or both dogs, God forbid. But so there is, California Realtors have sent out a sample residential lease. You can fill in the blanks, it's PDF fillable. You know, go ahead and use these things. Don't make this, it's a business transaction no matter who it is you're talking to. So we want to just put that out there. Also, I don't ever, it's probably the first time in my career I've ever plugged a private party, but Nolo Press has a lot of stuff for free on their website that explains, it's legal. It's protections for landlords, it's protections for tenants. You're entering into a whole new world for most of us that is going to bring up some discomfort at sometimes. It also can bring a lot of joy and a lot of really new, cool new people into your life and into your home. But there's things to consider when you're doing that. So having it done up front and in the communication from the start just makes everything else go better, right? So with that, thank you for all of your time and attention. Again, on our website, we are here when business hours are open. These are our direct lines and our emails, and thank you so much for your time.
I did one correction up there. I didn't catch it. On code enforcement, I'm not a manager. That's development services manager.
I'm sorry, yeah.
That's a discussion we'll have later.
Oops. Okay, so I promise questions. You had your first hand up.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One is, this is not about ADUs, but can you convert a garage garage space just to add to the square footage of the house if you have parking on your property?
So it's almost kind of a non sequitur, that first question on a non-ADU.
Okay,
But,
sorry,
but no,
I'll answer your question then.
but I want to put, and I don't mean to, it's almost like I put you under the plug, so thank you for asking. In Cerrito today, if you convert your garage, I need another garage. If it's not an ADU, I need 2 spaces of covered parking, or if you just converted a garage and it was 1 space, I need 1 space of covered parking. That's the current code. We want accessory dwelling units so much we waived that. And there may be sometime in a future date where we're gonna have more conversations on what belongs on your property and what the priorities are, but today, if you convert your garage to add that place where you want to put your teenager, but it's not a junior ADU, I need a garage or a carport. So it's stricter to just add to your home.
Okay, the other question is, if you're adding square footage, a new building on your house, a little cottage, don't you have to do a area ratio? I forgot what the acronym is.
Floor area ratio?
Floor area ratio to make sure that you can only build a certain percentage of your whole lot?
There is a coverage requirement, and it's going to depend on each district, and it's going to depend on your slope, which is just another reason to come in and meet your planning staff.
Okay, and then the last question, sorry.
You probably have answering questions.
Probably. So I helped someone with an ADU recently. I am not. And we were trying to figure out, sorry.
No, it's more like,
I'm still
I think you're going to get ganged up on as
Right.
you walk out of here.
So we did this in Berkeley, and we couldn't get the answer of how much of a cooking area that we need. Do you need a hot plate? Does that meet the requirements, or do you need an oven? Or no one could tell us. We did tons of research, and there was not clear. Even reading the codes 10 times, there was not a clear answer as to what defines a kitchen or cooking space.
I think that's because the building code does not really, like, I'm with Jay. Is there a definitive building code, what the cooking?
The answer is definitively, it depends.
Perfect.
Yeah, but you know, and it really does, because I sometimes I have to like jump over the whole other suite of codes that our jurisdiction has adopted. So like for an example, if I go to the International Property Maintenance Code, it just says you have to have a cooking facility. And it's really vague. So so from a housing, because I also do housing inspections, which is different from just building inspections. It's basically habitability requirements. If I have a stove burner in the house, I consider that a cooking facility. So that's exactly why we want to come in, have you come in when you're drawing the plan, and ask that question so we can get the building official there. Again, the beauty about El Cerrito, we are a small town. We are, you know, compared to other jurisdictions, we're a pretty small office. So it's literally, Mark, yeah. How much of a cooking facility? Just one burner fine, you know. So it's that simple with us. So, but I never, so far, I haven't had a situation where we got restrictive about how much of a cook area. And those junior ADUs, we're talking hot plate.
Yeah.
You know, so we aspire for like a burner when people want to put one in.
Right.
So I don't think that's going to be a big issue in our jurisdiction.
Right, and then whether we can tell you on the spot, we can definitely tell you at the end of the meeting. Whether you come in and meet with us at the counter, you can bring the building official up and have that conversation. So it's as you said, we're a small shop and we're glad to proactively help you because you're trying to design around something and you can't get a number, that's frustrating.
And what's also nice is that in our jurisdiction, we try to have the same building inspector for the whole project.
Yeah.
You know, so when we have a conversation about code and how we're interpreting it, it's a good chance that the building inspector who shows up on the next visit is going to be the same person who had that conversation.
You were.
So, yeah, I have 2 questions. So, an existing garage that is going to be, it has a window on the property line?
Yeah, and so in that case, what we would look at, is we would look at the permit history, and if we could verify, you know, in our record that this garage was built, you know, to the standard at the time of the inspection, we don't change the building.
So I could use that same cutout?
Yeah, and you know, sometimes we could just tell by just looking at the window itself. If it's like an original crank window. We might have a discussion amongst our little building nerds and say, look, you know, on the sandboard map that we have, it looks like something from Raiders of the Lost Ark, this crazy old map. This structure was here by 1950. I'm looking at a 1950 glazed crank window. We have every reason to believe that that window was there. So, you know, we try to help you. But we have to have something we can hang our hat on. Though. We can't just, we don't have the authority to be, you know,
without any evidence.
yeah, we need to have something, but we look hard.
And also, if you haven't been to City Hall, please come. Again, since you've been here tonight, we've got you in once. We have at our front counter at least 3 different computers where we have Laserfiche. Everything that we've ever known about your house is on Laserfiche and searchable by you and anyone else. It's public. So all of our permit history that we have is there. If we don't have everybody's house plan, or building plans, I wish we did. We don't. We have some. If we had them for some other permit, we have them now. But it's if you are kind of at a loss of where to start, or you want to have any kind of as-built for your house that you don't already have in your possession, we might have something. Come on in, and we can set you up, and you can look through it at your own discretion. If it's not a stamped architectural plan, we can make copies for you.
The other question I have is there was something about the square footage of the ADU had to be 50% of the primary?
Maximum.
Oh, no.
So maximum of, so the by right versus discretionary thing. So if you have, so your ADU can be half the size of your primary unit, or up to 1,200 square feet if you've got a 2,400 square foot primary. And if it's bigger than that, we would do a administrative use permit.
And what if it's really small?
You can go down to whatever that was. 100.
No, but I mean, if you wanted the ADU to be more than 50, it can't be.
Sure, it can with an administrative use permit. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so basically, like, there are some rules in place. We can't just indiscriminately change the rules. So the administrative use permit is basically a public due process.
All right.
And that allows us
For
to
various. Okay.
In some places where we have.
it's a legal way for us to do.
Thank you.
In the back.
Following up on that same question, is that the only thing that is different that it was brought to a public hearing?
Right, so back to this slide. Sorry. Don't you have something? Yeah.
Well, that was on the first.
Right. This one. So, the square footage discussion, the height of a detached ADU, and the architectural compatibility are all flexible. And we can talk about it on a case-by-case basis with an administrative use permit. So that's the zoning administrator hearing. It's not held in the council chambers unless there's a lot of people coming. It's in a little room upstairs called the Hillside Room. You've already met the zoning administrator because it's me. And if it's not me, it's that woman in the corner. That's Melody Minson, Community Development Director. It's usually a small, very friendly conversation. And so I don't want anyone to be like, I'm not doing that public hearing thing. If I can be here talking to all 78 of you, you can do it. We'll get you through.
Or then the area of the ADU has to be within the allowable lot coverage?
Yes. Yeah, so there's a lot, she's discussing that there's a maximum lot coverage for every zone and every residential zone in El Cerrito. So there is a maximum lot coverage that you can have on each lot, and the planning staff would be happy to identify your zoning and then your coverage. Ma'am?
The junior ADW, auxiliary, well.
The junior ADU?
You said it doesn't need a bathroom, but can it have a bathroom?
Well, yes, sort of. Right, it's,
my question kind of relates to the question about the kitchen.
yeah.
Because what I'm thinking of is sort of a bed-sit situation where you've got a bedroom, office with a little kitchenette and a bathroom. Does that make it a junior ADW because it's just this little tiny, you can get a little unit that's got a little fridge and a little stove and a little sink or not even stove, but just the burners, right?
Yeah,
Is that enough?
many college dorms are based on just that.
Yes.
So we haven't had the implementation of this. We haven't had a project come in and we had to decide if it was an ADU or a junior ADU. Junior ADU is a bedroom in your house with a hot plate and access to a bathroom. So that's easy. well, what if it's, then there's a door, so the bathroom, now it's like an ensuite. We all watch HGTV too much, right? So it's not an ensuite and an open floor plan, you get all those. If it, at some point it becomes an ADU, right? So I would, on a case by case, and the difference is fire separation, the difference is building code. So if you're like, here's my bedroom and there's a hot plate and the bathroom's next door, okay, that's a junior ADU. Okay, that's all one unit and now I've got the rest of the house around it. Well, that might be an accessory dwelling unit. So it's really gonna have a lot to do with your floor plan. Come on in and talk to us about your particular issue.
What is the approximate cost for the, what was it, the discretionary, with the public hearing, whatever?
So it's $1,015.
Okay.
Yeah, that's AUP.
The
Sure.
AUP, right.
So if I plan a detached unit in my backyard, if I keep that setback requirement from the back side, like 15 feet, the unit will end up in the middle of backyard. Is it also, can it be also subject of administrative use permit thing?
Yeah, we can't let you encroach in your, how do I say this? Setbacks, the minimum setbacks are required. I can't flex those, but we can, there's probably some flexibility there, we can talk about it. And we have had, let me think about this. So minimum setbacks are not in our ability to be flexible at this point. So that's why a lot of people want to convert their garage, because then they can keep it against the corner of their property if that's what they have.
Right, especially if existing garage is allowed to be there with a minimum, really close to the corner.
Right.
Why not, the new unit?
So this is what a planner sounds like sounding like a builder, because building code is different for habitable space where we put humans versus where we put stuff.
Right.
So we never, the garages were really just glorified carports right from the beginning, right? Somebody put a car there and then they realized it was getting sun bleached, so they put a cover on it, and then one day their stuff got stolen, so they put walls on it. It was never meant to be safe or usable for anything besides the lawnmower and the car, or bikes. So it changes, everything changes when you put a human in it. So there's different setbacks. And there's light and air for your neighbors and yourself. Lots of folks want to be thoughtful about their neighbors' light and air as their light and air, and that's some of the reasons our setbacks exist as well. So, but we do, I have one house that's coming in to do an administrative use permit to move the ADU to the front of the lot because they had more space and they were trying to protect their backyard. And they have a creek running through it, and there is a 30-foot buffer around your creeks if you have one. So that will be something that we look forward to helping them with. So there's probably some creativity in where you can put it to maximize your yard and still have an accessory dwelling unit all on your lot. Sir?
So if your current dwelling has only one off-street parking spot and it is the garage, and if you want to convert that, you're saying you have to put 2 more parking spots on
Wait,
the lot?
no, yeah, that would be horrible, right? No, if you have an existing house and you have a one-stall garage, you only, and you want to put, that's where you want to put your accessory dwelling unit, go right ahead, and your driveway will become your new parking space. And unless you have the world's shortest driveway and the car's hanging over the sidewalk, you're good, we're done there.
So you just
Just
have
one.
So yeah, if you had one, you have to replace one. If you had 2, you have to replace 2. If you have 3, you're probably not in El Cerrito.
Are you allowed to build an ADU on top of a garage and keep your garage your garage?
You are. You are. So we're still having conversations about that. You probably can do that, and you may be able to keep the setback for it. We have to talk a little bit more about that as it comes in. But you absolutely, so there was a slide on that, where it could be in addition to the house.
Or like if it's a detached garage?
Yes, you can do it, whether it's going to be an accessory, by right or discretionary, we're going to have to figure out. We're still, the garage conversion thing, we're trying to be as lenient as possible, we can't step over the foot. But it's doable either with an AMP or by right.
Yeah, I think like discretionary might just kick them by how high it is. So if over 15 feet, you won't need to get it.
Right. Good. Sir?
So if you're on a slope, how extensive of a sort of soil review do you have to do, and are there additional fees and things attached to that?
Yes, thank you for asking. So I bet you've all noticed that half of our city is on a hill. And I joke that sometimes it kind of sounds like Old Testament kind of thing, where it's like, there's fires, there's slides, and like, there's famine, there's little bugs, right? There's all kinds of things in our hills that we have to plan for, especially slide zones and fire zones. So if your house is in, if you already know, and if you don't know, you can go to that GIS again, which so, go to our city's website, in the little search box, type GIS. First thing you get with a big GIS system, you can turn a layer on. You can find out like I did when I was in escrow, that yes, I've got both. I'm going to slide and the fire zone. So, great. So then when you recover from that, if you are doing detached accessory dwelling unit in your backyard, for example, we will need the same soil information that we needed for your house. And it's for everyone's safety that stays put now and in the seismic event. And if you are in a part where the fire, it's called the urban rural. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, planners in the back. That there's special roofs that you can put in, right? There's the things that don't burn well as the limitations on your construction stuff. But it's and on that topic, if you have a new house and you have a sprinkler system, that's the word I was looking for. Thanks for telepathically getting to that. If your house has a sprinkler, your ADU will have a sprinkler. If your house does not have a sprinkler, unlike San Jose in that recent article that you probably all read, we won't make you put in a sprinkler. That just seemed bad. So, but yes, whatever applies to your house will apply to your accessory dwelling unit, unless it's a conversion of existing habitable space, and then that's where you're already there. But if you go up, if you add, or you're adding a new, then we have to look to make sure it's safe. Sir?
Is there an access requirement from a street to a backyard space and a certain width for the walkway?
Yes. Yes. You want to, so it doesn't have to be accessible. Again, if you're in the hills, there's no way you're going to get a 2% slope back to the street. I wish I could, but there's no way we can do that without grading the heck out of everything, right? So it has to be at least 30 inches wide, I believe, for access for so entry doors are.
Oh, the entry door?
No, I'm talking about what side?
Yeah, these are the sidewalk. So it's got to be at least 30 inches wide. And we
Oh, what, 36 inches?
6 inches, 36 inches wide.
Or are you talking about a lamp? I mean, I didn't.
Walkway, just the walkway, the entry, so not the door threshold itself, but the path coming up.
Oh, the path will like, we have to double check the code, because I know like, when I was looking at pathways for kitchens, I want to enter that's 30 inches, so we'd have to look at that to see if it applies.
So now talking to you as a landlord, you want your tenant to be able to carry groceries and walk, right? So you don't want to be at 14, or you don't want someone to have to figure out how, then you want them to get their garbage cans to the road, right? So there's stuff that you want to think about. So we can tie that down, and we can probably put some FAQs up on our website at the end of all this too, but at least 30, if not 36, and 42 probably wouldn't be terrible, right? You won't get in trouble for 45. I've been ignoring this whole line. Hi. Go ahead.
I just want to clarify on a detached garage conversion, ADU, not junior, but ADU. So it requires a kitchen and a bathroom, right? Full bath.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
And a full kitchen?
Yes, and we will talk more about putting cooking. And there's the rub, right? So I think it is found in the building code what we mean by that. And so we can work on our FAQs to get that down, but it typically has a refrigerator, a stove of some sort, and and if you like anybody, a dishwasher, but that's between you and your tenant. But so, yeah, so it has to be more than a hot plate, and we can talk more about what the details of that would look like. Sir?
With a separate bathroom, can you have a central room, one room that includes the kitchen facility? Does the kitchen have to be somehow a separate room?
I think it's going to have to do with the requirements of the spacing that you have. So we have to have that 70 square foot bedroom, right? And then the kitchen has to have 30-inch walk space. So you can have a studio apartment, right? Yes, that's totally doable. But there will be building code concerns regarding how that works out.
Just one, sorry, is the city doing anything to make sure that the ADUs are not becoming Airbnbs, or is that not part of the conversation?
Okay, So, it is part of the conversation in that the city of El Cerrito does not allow Airbnbs. And I'm sitting here in front of you knowing that there's a bunch of Airbnbs in the city of El Cerrito, and I can search it just like all of you can. We require, when we get a complaint about an Airbnb, we go out and introduce ourselves to them, and I can tell you lots of stories about how talk about it's hard enough to be a landlord. It's really hard to find an Airbnb. All kinds of interesting things we get invited to at 3 o'clock in the morning. But 30 days at a time. You can't rent anything currently without a conditional use permit. You can have bed and breakfast, but there's one in the city of El Cerrito right now. That has a conditional use permit, bed and breakfast. Otherwise, it's got to be greater than 30 days in the rent. I'm sorry, Cal Bradley, but it happens.
What's the difference between a bed and breakfast and an Airbnb operation?
About 20 years of marketing. Yeah,
So
not
essentially,
the same thing. Yeah, it's just that, I think one of hers is written. But yeah, it's the nomenclature has changed, but our zoning ordinance, we're lucky we don't have like blacksmiths.
Just to clarify with it, relevant background. Because in Airbnb, the resident is in the park, right? So there's an Airbnb, they could be either way. We do allow Airbnb to cover it.
Right, so B&Bs can be a slew of things, right? So in the case of the B&B that we would allow, it's part of the primary dwelling, the room or two of the primary dwelling, and minimal. An Airbnb can be a room or a house, or
they can both be short-term if it's operated with that fee, right?
if they have a CUP, you can operate it for less than 30 days. So yes, and there's one of those legal, and it's not a food thing. There's one in the city of El Cerrito, and everybody else is on a complaint-driven basis.
so if there's a detached unit that operates as a bed and breakfast?
If you apply for a conditional use permit, or you rent it out for greater than 30 days at a time.
Did you mention you live in there too? Like the owner lives in there?
Right, yes, and all of these, well, just to recap, that was a really good point. The owner's living somewhere on the site.
Yeah.
Right, so, and if the owner were to move, why would you move to El Cerrito? But if you happen to move, then you can rent the entire property, but you can't rent those two things separately. It becomes one big house no matter what you do. You can't sell these out if the owner's not on site under current regulation.
Do you have to know what the minimum length for that off-street parking is?
Yes.
Driveway?
You know, so when you ask a planner those questions, we get talk about geeky. I'm like, 10 by 20. They could be 9 by 18. 10 by 20 is wonderful, 9 by 18 is good. If you're doing it inside a garage, you can't open your doors at 9 feet to give yourself more, but the space on your driveway has to be at least 9 feet wide and at least 18 feet long.
Per two or per car?
That's per car.
18 per car?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a mini and a minivan, and I promise the minivan needs a 9 by 8.
So that'd be covered?
If you're replacing your parking that was in the garage that you just made into your utility use, no. You're putting an addition on your house? In the back.
Yes, what about tiny houses, the trailers, the wheels that you can use, do they come under the same umbrella as the permitting in the zone for the ADUs?
Sure. So tiny houses don't necessarily come only on wheels. Right. So if you're doing a detached accessory dwelling unit and it happens to be a tiny house, a modular house that you bring in on wheels, we're going to ask you to put it on a foundation. And we're going to ask you, are you required to hook up to sewer and water at this time? Right? We've talked about, there's a lot of things we do under our building code about some sort of gray water. We're not the experts for that tonight, and you can't use a septic system for your ADU. That kind of thing is not, we're too dense for that right now.
It ain't home until you take the wheels off.
You know my mother.
You have to take the wheel.
Yeah, it has to be on a permanent foundation.
Yeah, it's gotta be bolted. We're in the seismic district too.
Yeah.
So we gotta make, it's an earthquake, consideration.
Yeah, there is no septic zone fire. So that's, we're in that area. Anyone else? Oh, wait.
Yeah, I'm a little confused on the permit fees and also when an administrative uses permit is required. Like in my situation, we have a separate garage that's in front of the house, it all is all covered, it's sort of under the same roof as the house. It's connected like by a breezeway that's sort of all part of the same roof, and I don't know if that qualifies as being connected or separate.
I'm going to go with Jay's favorite answer. It depends.
Yeah.
Right? It sounds from what you're describing as a connected building, but it might not be. So we could easily meet you at the counter and figure that out.
So how does that affect the permits and the administrative use permit?
Okay, so if you're adding an ADU to an existing garage and you're not going up.
Yeah, we're not expanding it anyway.
Yeah, so it's probably a ministerial, and of course, so it might be, so under planning, it's probably a ministerial by right permit, so that's at 31050, whatever that was. And then it would be a conversion phase for the building permit.
It would be which for the?
So there's two kinds, there's addition and conversion. We'll just get there. Sorry. Conversion of existing space. So without my building official here, I think it's going to be this one, 512 per 300 square feet. And then the 30150. If we find that there's something that you're not following the development parameters on, and I want to say just once, if you don't have a permit originally, it's new construction to us, right? So, so two things on that. If we don't have a permit, come look at the Laserfiche because we probably do. And if you don't and we don't, we can't. We'll work with you. If you come in and say, something happened downstairs in the 50s, I don't know what happened, but now there's a house there. We want to work with you to make that legal and safe. We will not get punitive. We want to make things safe and legal. So we'll come along with you on that ride. If we have to find it, then there's a code enforcement cost that could be incurred. So we're not walking through the back of your house any other way than you invited us, but that's that conversation. So if the garage was built with permit, is what I was thinking. That's where I started off on that. And it's conversion to that space, then it's probably 301 and then 300 square feet, or if it's a 300 square foot, it's probably not, but 512 plus another 100 feet, right? So, and we can talk more about that. And then, talk to Stige, talk to the school district, because there'll be additional fees on top of that. So, Matt.
Just for the ADUs that have been built in Cerrito so far, and the junior ADUs, what has the costs been? Like, what kind of range are we talking about? Not even square foot, but just, people, they finally finished their project and they did their thing, and some people have a separate one, some have an attached one, and other ones have the junior. Yeah, just what's the whole gamut?
I'm smiling because when people come to the counter for building permit, we say, what is the value of construction? And that's the one time where we fully expect someone's going to lowball us, and we're supposed to smile and say, excellent, so you're doing this 3-bedroom, 2-bath ADU, and by lifting your house, and it's going to be $100,000. Absolutely. No. So we don't get exact prices. We don't. One of the things I will ask all of you to do is if you're going along and you want to share your journey, we'd love to talk more about that and have that to not putting out your floor plan to the world like I did to myself here tonight, but we don't have hard data on what it costs someone from start to finish because we aren't involved with what they're paying their contractor, their subs for the materials, right? I can tell you what the building permits are running. I can tell you that personally, I'm still looking for a general contractor, but it's going to put a big hole in about $80,000. And it's conditioned space in my existing house. So it's not,
How many square feet?
950. So, and so I'm not, I don't mean to brag or scare you off, but it's, so I think our conversation in our household started with, well, we just won't go on vacation this year, and instead we'll get financing is what we're going to get, because who has that? So it's more than you think is my takeaway.
And is there, I have a friend who works in housing way at work, but he said that there's a lot of like federal and state funding because of the housing crunch in areas where housing is needed for loans. Is that, do you know anything about that?
Nope, no, we actively searched as a household, and I've actively searched as a city. I haven't found, I was looking over for housing analysts, was still here. Not for accessory dwelling units, to my knowledge. There are some counties, like San Mateo County had a revolving loan program, but that was countywide. Contra Costa does not have that. And
And I think in the fire area, there's a lot of, you know,
Yes.
rural and you're poor and you're there.
Yes, they just locked everything down. Yeah.
Wrote out there was-
Yeah, that would be great. We would love to find a way to help people finance things, but it's, one of the things we are finding is a lot of people who have been here for more than 10 years, their housing value has gone up. So a lot of people are taking out equity from their house, but we don't have any part of that, and we wish you every success.
Just 2 points I was looking for clarification. The expanding the footprint of the garage for the ADU, that you're now going to be required to meet the setbacks of any expansion.
Yeah, the magical thing you don't want to do is step out of the building.
Okay. And then, so as far as the owner occupying one of the 2 units, is there a different type of permitting stream where you could someday move and rent both of them out?
So currently under the city of Cerrito municipal code, you can rent them separate. You could, if you got that lucky lotto ticket, somebody has. Somebody's a billionaire thing. If you're that guy, we should talk. And you can rent it out of one big house if you couldn't make it. You can't rent it out of under the current code. There might be some state regulation coming down the line, or city council may choose in the future to lift that, but for the current time, that's not allowable.
Well, also, did we mention about the deed restriction?
Right.
Yeah.
So how we mean, what happens with one of the units is before we approve your building permit, you have to put a deed restriction on your house. We have a template for that, but you report it on your title saying that you acknowledge that someone, the owner's living, or somebody on the trust, because lots of people are in trust now, is living in one of those units. So that's, how do we know? Some of your neighbors call us and say, you know what, Smith moved out and that's not Smith there anymore, people are buying on. So that's how it is.
There's any notion of a new assessment on this property once work will be done?
So we have to report building permits to the county. What they do with that information really varies year to year, but I would imagine we see something wrong, but we haven't had the whole cycle go through government. We're hearing new adjustments are coming in. They don't, in my experience, they don't assess differently every year, but they do keep track of the improvements that is shared with the county and fire right along. Sure.
When you're looking at a separate unit, separate structure, and you're trying to figure out what the lot size, how big the structure could be, if it's 300 square feet on the bottom, to something on top of 200 square feet, or so let's say that's 300, can you go beyond? So
we don't do the FAR, we do lot. So it's the footprint of the building. So it's the footprint of all the buildings on your lot that consists of your lot coverage, and talking about decks versus other covered decks. Stretch decks.
So it's footprint, not?
It's a footprint, not, yeah, so there is a height limit. So detached, there's a one set, and then with initial use permit, you can go higher. At a certain point, you're going to institute called the RAD process, where we're going to have a building envelope, and we're going to talk to you about, we do not have a review ordinance in the city of Cerrito, but we do have you talk to your neighbors when you're going through your building, because you might be taking out somebody's view, and you just, flip the edge of that one cornice, they get full gate back. So there's a conversation that happens with a two-story building, and two-story house in Elsie.
I'm sorry, I'd like to go back to the question, because I see a contradiction about if you convert a garage, so you no longer have your parking space. Yeah, and you're okay to have a pad, and you said one is okay.
So if you converted a two-stall garage.
No, say it's a one-car garage.
Okay, one-car garage.
So there's a driveway in front of my one-car garage that takes a car.
You let it open, yes, ma'am.
So, but I see here on the handout that came out, it said 2 off-street parking spaces are required for a single-family residence.
Right, so that's a vast majority. So what I'm saying is true. What I'm saying is it's covering the vast majority of those that are doing it. And those right now today, and for many, many years, you had to have a two-stall garage to create a single-family detached home in El Cerrito. It's not true for everyone. There are people with no covered garage. There are people that moved by permit, removed it, or it never came with one. There are people with a one-stall garage by permit. They only have to replace one. If you converted it, I made that into an exercise room, we still call that a two-stall garage. So we're gonna go back to like Jay says, we have these books that are hand-drawn and really dusty, and they are like opening like a golden door. We can go back and the laser fiche, we can find out something about your garage. But if we can go back, we're rooting for you, honestly. We're going through it, but tell me at what point it was a one-stall garage? Was it? Yes, that's what we need to see. Now we need one space.
It's interior, so I mean, it's original.
Yeah, and there are probably some driveways somewhere in El Cerrito that aren't long enough to take a car, but I haven't seen one for ADU yet.
Okay, so just one.
Anybody else?
We should just review the setback requirements within the context of a detached ADU.
It depends on your zone. That's why I didn't throw it into tonight's presentation so calculus. So RS5 with a 5,000 square foot lot in the RS5 zone, those we would count kind of like a zoning key, is 15 in the front for that house, 20 is the garage in the front if you want to leave the front porch, 5 on the sides and 10 in the rear. But your lot may vary. And if you have a lot smaller than 5,000 square foot in the 5,000 square foot zone, we can move around into the 10% either way conversation we can have. So, depends on your lot, depends on your zone. All right, what about you twice? Yes, sir.
Is there a firewall requirement for junior?
No, that's $1 million answer. There is no firewall requirement for a junior ADU. An ADU is a room in your house with a hot plate and 2 doors. So when it starts to look like an ensuite or an ADU, then I have to go differently on that. So it's so much cheaper to do a junior ADU if you don't walk out 18 feet from, right? You have to have a door that works without killing them.
There's sort of a gray area between the junior ADU and the ADU.
Yep.
Where's the adolescent period?
Yes, yes. Right, that terrible teens, even in housing, isn't pretty. But again, we're rooting for you on this. So it'll be Melanie Units and the building official and myself and Jay and a few others that can almost our entire staff right there. And Aisa, when we pull her in, just walked in our house again. We're trying to make this work. So if we were reasonable way to not giggle, it could be a junior ADU. It's absolutely an ADU, and you're like, no, it's not. I put my kid in there, then we might have trouble. But we're trying to get in. Sir.
So just to piggyback off of that question, go in a slightly different direction. So if you have your firewall, can you have a door between the two as long as it meets the UL whatever requirements?
Yes, you can put a door on your firewall. It's a 20-minute door. Yeah. Yes. Anybody else? Sir.
Have you seen a window in a 1-hour firewall?
I haven't seen a window that opens. Yeah. We have a design. I'm not going to send anybody over, but there's a person here that designs for a living. So.
There's fire-rated glass.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times if you go like into a building, you see that wired glass. A lot of that's fire-rated, and the reason for the wiring, a lot of people think it's safety glass. It's actually the most dangerous glass to go through than any other kind of glass. It's actually the wires hold the glass in place longer, so the spread of fire doesn't go down a corridor. You'll also, so there is fire-rated glass.
So as you back up to a property line, you could have a non-opening window for light, but not a non-opening window. And it would be a 1-hour rated window in a firewall, say a 3-coat stucco wall.
That's conceivably true. And it might be very expensive, but it's not beyond realm, and we'd be glad to sit down and talk to you about your plan. Okay. Thank you very much.